There we go, Tired of Being Alone, Al Green, classic track there. Okay, welcome to the Watershed. We've got lots to talk about and lots of more music to listen to. Before that, I just want to apologise for the language in last week's show. As host, it is my job to manage that, and I admit that getting a little bit carried away last week, so I once again wish to apologise in case anyone was offended. As a consequence, I've lost my wingman. That song then, Tired of Being Alone, is dedicated to Adam in case he's listening. Love you lots, dude. And Brian says, thanks to the USB. This brings me on to tonight's guest. We've got Brian Branch with us, published author of Seconds Out, former engineer, boxer, priest, all-round legend. Stephen Carley with us. We've got nothing to say about Stephen Carley. There's two chicks that like to follow us along like groupies. We've also got John, who's got a very upsetting story, but fortunately has got a happy ending, in so much that he has come out of to see us this evening, stronger and here, basically. So that's the most important thing. If you want to join in tonight's discussion, email at studio@Manchester Radio Online, phone 0161 660 0545. If there's anything you'd like us to cover which we've not yet covered, please let us know. So, we have a little bit more music now. I'm starting off mellow tonight, just to be a little bit chilled out, because we've got, last week we played quite a few heavy ones. So we started off with Al Green, now we've got a little bit of Cat Stevens, and I love this. And this is just to prove that, you know, we're all the same on this planet, and we all love each other. And Mr. Yusuf Islam here, when he used to be called Cat Stevens.
From Manchester with love.
ManchesterRadioOnline.com.
Right, through to the Watershed again. We're going to go through some news stories this week before we start talking to John about his experiences. Before we do that, obviously, Steph, Carly, Brian and John are free to give us their opinions on these week's stories. First one that's come up, this is from a few days ago now, but it's obviously something that is a major thing for most people. This was released on Tuesday. All I was trying to do is maybe add a story per day, but this one basically is car insurance has doubled. Wants to know where the money goes. There's a shocking truth. Apparently 18 years ago the average car insurance premium was £333. That's including 17-year-olds up to 65-year-olds and above. This was spent on fixing cars after a crash. Today it is £1,510. Much of which apparently here feathers a nest of claims companies. So, of course, we talk about it all the time. I mean, the big thing that most people say these days, most of these companies use to explain why it's acceptable for them to charge as much as they charge, they say it's down to these insurance people who are trying to make a claim on it, make a bit of extra money on it. So what I wanted to do is ask the guests in the studio what they believe. Do you think it's an excuse, or do you think it's a way of these companies to make extra money exploiting us, or is it genuinely because people are after a quick buck or whatever and they just want to try and squeeze a few pounds out at the detriment of everyone else who's an honest driver?
Do you want to kick off on this?
Go on, Brian. I'll let you start off.
Well, I don't have too much of a problem on that because mine's kind of stable at something like 400, 500.
How many years no claims have you got?
15.
15, there you go. That's not too bad.
Well, I've got more than that, but
see, an interesting.
Allow you so much.
You see, somebody I know, a young lady as well, over the age of 25, was quoted over £3,000 for a smart car, which of course is a 0.8 litre engine, whatever. It's hardly a Ferrari anyway. Let's put it that way.
Living in a respectable postcode as well.
Well, yeah, living in a respectable postcode with the highest amount of car thefts in Manchester due to the student population. To be fair, but still, £3,000 a year for a car which you'd struggle really to get over 60 miles an hour in is a little bit too much. And yet at the same time, you've got other people in different areas where it's, say, I don't know, live in Alderley Edge or Cheadle Hulme. Again, it's all about class warfare again. This is what their theme that we keep coming back to on the Watershed Show. They could be driving, they could be 17 years of age, driving around in the car, and the people that can afford to pay the insurance are the people that are driving the fast cars. Let's face it, that is a little bit of a silly situation that we live in, but that's how it is.
I'll tell you what, when I came from the east end of London to the north, I thought I would pay less. Instead, I'm paying more. And for the simple reason is that more car theft, as well as we're surrounded by motorways. So that surprised me.
But of course, we've also now got this double whammy, so to speak, where there's a refinery which was closed a few days ago, which they reckon has avoided bankruptcy. And they were saying that it was going to put the price of petrol up by 25% because this refinery was closed and it was going to affect everything. And now they're saying that it's avoided bankruptcy. But it just seems to me that what appears to happen, I remember petrol pumps in Asda a few weeks ago, they actually went down to about £1.24 per litre at one point, I remember you saying. And what happened was everywhere else was still charging £1.30, £1.32. Within a day, Asda was charging £1.30. They always try and stay a little bit under, but without going over. So it's again, they'll say that they're paying what the barrel per, how many dollars per barrel, whatever that they're supposed to be paying. But in fact, all they're doing is just trying to squeeze every last little penny that they can out of the motorists. And of course, again, it's not your footballer that suffers. It's not your barrister that suffers. It's not your people earning good money, like business owners, people like that. The people that are suffering are your single mums, low-income families, nurses, teachers, people like that who are earning less than £30,000 a year, who are struggling to get to work, they're struggling to survive, basically. And again, we seem to have this society split again, where those who have can and those who haven't can't.
Yes.
Well, I was conned into buying a diesel. And diesel should be cheap because it's a byproduct of refining. But diesel is pricier than anything else now. It's the priciest fuel going. That's a con.
Well, they've added extra duty to it on the basis that they claim it's to avoid pollution in the air and talk about carbon emissions. I think I read somewhere once that...
Why did they say it was green?
But I remember a story once, and this is, I'll be able to find it on the internet if I look, I'm sure, but I remember reading somewhere that like mass farming or controlled farming, like sheep and cows and things, produces much more pollution and damage to the environment than all the cars in the world running. If they were all on diesel and they're all driving around 100 miles a day, they wouldn't produce anywhere near as much as this intensive farming that we've got. And of course, we've got Carla with us who's a vegetarian. We've not only got these lambs, cows, whatever, on the other side of the world producing these emissions. We then put them on a plane, fly them around the world because it's cheaper than the countries where we were buying it. So we're doubling up on that. I mean, what I've always said is, I'm a part-time vegetarian, I suppose. I'm a lapsed vegetarian. I do try and do it, but I always end up giving in to my impulses. But we could solve this so-called environmental meltdown that we're meant to be experiencing now by cutting down on our meat production. Yes. But of course, people don't talk about that. People talk about, well, what we'll do is we'll shut down this station and we'll put windmills on the hills and we'll put things out in the sea, which cost you extra as someone who's buying gas and buying electric. And it's a con. It's a big con. And it's a scam that we're all falling for. And it seems to me that it's these... liberal media that seems to be pushing this. I'm not sure whether they fell into this trap of falling for it all, but they don't seem to be helping the situation. Every time a study comes out, it says, well, actually, we're producing more pollution by manufacturing these things which are supposed to be cutting it down. It seems to get pushed to one side. So there's something going on. But again, who gains? Who gains from this? Because the biggest investors in these green products now are the countries which were producing oil. Because they've been funding these companies, these green industries. They've been doing it for years. Gordon Brown, about 4 or 5 years ago, actually said to the people in charge of Saudi Arabia that if you were to cut down your cost per barrel, per dollar per barrel, we will give you a stake in our green energy industry, which is a growing industry. So, they can't lose, and money goes to money, as we've always said. So that's my opinion on it. If you've got any thoughts, 0161 660 0545. I can't imagine many people disagreeing, to be honest, about car insurance and petrol. But if you've got any alternative thoughts, or if you want to agree, let us know. Studio at Manchester Radio Online, or you can tweet at Watershed at MRO. And that's on Twitter, of course, which I still can't get my head around. Okay, next story this week, which has caught the eye, is I can just find it while my thing's frozen. We've got here, obviously, benefit cuts, which is the major one this week. I think most people have seen in the papers, where they're limiting the amount a family can claim in benefits down to £26,000 a year. Of course, I believe, personally, that £26,000 a year, which equates to, what's that, £520 a week, should be, if we, all things included, should be a reasonable amount to provide for a family. And also, £35,000 a year is what you would have to earn to receive that amount after tax. So it's a hot topic, it's a debated topic. I'm not sure where you guys stand on it. I seem to believe that that kind of money, that kind of wealth is far, far more than what people would have had 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And at the same time, I'm in two minds about it, because what I don't like the idea is that, of course, we've got this situation where we seem to be marginalising people, and it seems to be the people at the bottom that are suffering, thanks to the media being able to lead people down this path of, if you buy the Sun, you buy the Mail, you buy the Star, we'll show you boobs on page 3, and then we'll indoctrinate you with these thoughts and these feelings, and we'll tell you how to think. And people seem to fall for it. Things aren't so clear-cut as they appear in the papers. And like you were just saying then, John, brainwashing. Has anyone got anything they'd like to say about the benefit cuts this week?
I work full-time. I don't receive any benefits. I've got no children. And to go back to what you were saying before as well, I can't afford to drive. I can't afford insurance. I can't afford to run a car. I think they get enough benefits as it is. And I speak to a lot of people in my line of work, members of the public that are struggling financially, and they do get a lot of money on benefits, and obviously the more kids that they have, the more benefits they've got coming in, and there's no incentive to go back to work.
But no, Carly, my instinct there is to agree with you 100%, but as we're going to find out when we speak to John a little bit, we focus in the media on when we see a family where they're living in a house in Chelsea and they've got 6 kids and they're getting £5,000 a month or whatever. And we turn around and we say, oh, this is appalling, they've got a £1 million house, they don't work. But then we forget about the thousands of people who are living in poor areas of Manchester, Liverpool, Glasgow, Birmingham, North London, South London, all over the country, who don't have it as easy as we like to think. And what we tend to do is we're grouping people, and I'm more guilty of it than anyone else. I do it all the time. But we group people together automatically without knowing any of the circumstances. And it's an easy thing. And what I was saying before we came on air, I was saying to John and Brian, is it used to be acceptable. The scapegoat was the colour of someone's skin, whether they were different. The scapegoat could have been because they were gay, because of anything. And now the scapegoat seems to be the poor. And we've gone back to this stage where, before pre-Victorian times, this supposed philanthropy that we're meant to have experienced then, to picking on the most vulnerable people, again, is a topic we're going to be returning to. And it just seems that only 65, 70 years ago, scapegoating led to the deaths of millions of people throughout Europe and all over the world as well. We lost so many people. And it seems to be a lesson that we don't learn from, because scapegoating does seem to be something that is in our nature.
Well, I think that I'm going to speak as a pensioner, because when I retired, I thought I'd be okay because I've got 2 pensions. But those 2 pensions, a state and my works pension, gives me $13,000 a year. And I thought, oh, I should manage to live on that. But I'm taxed on that. And my standard of living, pensioner standard of living, has gone down. And one of the things the people start to say, well, we didn't realise people were going to live as long as this. What have they been planning for? They planned for a 48-hour week from the unions, but we've lost that. Retiring at 60, we've lost that. And now people are surprised that people are living longer. So where was the planning gone?
But again, what I should mention as well is John's kindly joined us this evening, thanks to Paul Giovanni of the Critical Mass Show every Wednesday 9 till 11. And again, I keep doing this every week. So if you're listening, Paul, or if Martin's listening, this isn't intentional. I'm not trying to steal your thunder here. But this is the kind of thing which you cover every week, and it does seem to be, I can't think of a better way of phrasing it, but it does seem to be a little bit corrupt. It does seem to be a little bit unfair. And what bothers me as well is what Brian's saying there, is that we've also got a situation where you earn money, which you pay tax on. You buy something, you pay tax on. You buy petrol, you buy whatever, you pay tax on. Then the money you save for later life gets taxed. I mean, how much of this money that you earn actually is yours at the end of the day? But also is what Paul and Martin have said in the past, is that there seems to be a plan from the top to limit lifespan. Is what people want to do. That's what the long-term aim are. I mean, I'm not 100% on that yet, because I seem to think, well, if that was the long-term plan that they were trying to bring in, they wouldn't be giving all this advice about healthy eating and things like that. But I can see where they're coming from. I can see that we have got to a point now where, through best intentions, we've tried to prolong people's lives, but now we're thinking, hang on, what we're going to do if people actually do live. And I think you're quite right, because we're going to get to a point, I think already, something like it takes how many people in work to fund a pensioner. You used to have something like 1 pensioner and 5 people under pension age. Now it's reversed. And it's not a sustainable system, and it can't carry on. But why should people suffer because of the mismanagement of the economies of people in charge?
Well, at 74, I'm just a 2-year-old in my tantrum age now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to rebel. Rebellion is the thing. And it's people's power, but at the end, one has to actually say you have to have government to govern.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have governments that actually govern people and live, what am I trying to say? Is actually be where people are, instead of coming from backgrounds where they haven't had to struggle.
Yes.
Well, Ruth's messaged us here, and what Ruth's saying is, again, something which we instinctively want to agree with, saying benefit cap of £26,000. A lot of people are claiming they're living in rented property that may cost up to £1,000 a week, mostly in London. And there are many houses where I live where houses are boarded up. If you are in the benefit system, I don't think you should expect to live in wealthy areas. I understand that. And I think a lot of people would understand that. But we're talking 0.01%, And if somebody turns around, what do we do? Do we have a blanket ban on saying everyone deserves a home? Ruth, I actually agree with you in principle. But what we can't do is just say, well, okay, if you live in Manchester, you get a home. Or if you live in Liverpool, you get a home. But if you live in London, if you've moved to London, we're going to make you homeless, you and your kids homeless, because the only houses we've got are nice houses in Chelsea or Kensington. So, it's this tricky one. What do we do? Right, okay. What we'll do is we'll take a break. We'll listen to a bit more music. We've got a little bit of Take That, purely because everyone says I always play old stuff. So I'm going to be fair now and play some new stuff. Oh, this is actually a couple of years old. So this is Take That with The Flood. We've then got Together Forever, Two Wounded Birds, and then we're back chat for the rest of the next 2 hours.
About Manchester. Waterproof fabric was developed here by Charles McIntosh.
Right, we've got a couple of messages through. Ruth again, that small percentage of benefit claimers in the wealthy areas should be rehoused. A lot of parents use the postal code areas to get their children to the best schools, which I've heard before. Reports have just shown that children from disadvantaged areas do the poorest in exam results. We will be covering that, don't worry. And in academy schools, they're not producing good results for the poorer kids. Don't worry, I've got a wealth to say about that, Ruth. So we will be covering that, I promise. Also, Dave Kay's been back in touch. Back again listening to the... Oh, great show. Thanks, Dave. We started off last week. We didn't start off on good terms. Dave was slagging us off. I only started listening to the Watershed last week because I thought it was about fishing. But it's okay. I get it now. And he's also said, when will the US of A start using switchgrass ethanol instead of evading and killing to steal oil? Well, again, going back to the point we were just making about oil, which we're going to come back to on John, it's that obviously that's the real reason, isn't it? How many times we had an electric car? I think the first car, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was based on an electric engine. I think electric motor. The first time they ever put 4 wheels with something that carried it without horses. I think it was an actual electric device, and then we moved it on probably because it was inefficient at the time. But of course now we've got situations where we've got 2/3 of the world living in climates where they've got lots of sunshine. Why aren't we using solar panels? Why aren't we using this? Why aren't we using that? And it's because every time a company comes along with a great new device and a great way of doing things, they get bought out by the oil companies. Okay, John, you had something to say about oil, funnily enough.
Yes, well, we were talking about tax on taxes and pensions, etc., people already paying in.
Yeah.
What I'd like to know is, when we pay for petrol, diesel, whatever, fuel, why do we pay VAT on the duty? Because VAT shouldn't really be on the tax. It should be on the price of the product before the duty. So you're paying tax on tax.
Well, definitely. I mean, I've always thought this. If you say you've got £10, right, straight away, £3 of that has gone on income tax and national insurance. So you've got £7 left. If you then go and buy something to eat, right? And actually, no, I think is that still exempt of food?
I'm not sure.
I know it's a grey area when it comes to heating and things like that as well.
I think if it's heated, you pay
You
VAT.
pay,
But
yeah.
if it's straightforward food that you buy in the supermarkets, no.
Yeah.
It's only if it's cooked, heated.
Right, so it's only if it's cooked. So let's say you go and buy something that's cooked, okay? You're then paying 20% VAT on that, and then at the end, when you get the you buy petrol in your car to drive home, you're paying tax on that. So I'd be interested to know. I'd love it if someone with a brain, not like myself, could explain. If someone could work out exactly how much out of, for example, £10 or £100, however you want to work it out, how much of that money on an average day's spend is actually our money and how much of it is going into the government's back pocket. I think that's an interesting topic. If you're not, then fine. If so, let us know. 0161 660 0545 and email studio@Manchester Radio Online. We've had another message through. Is the boy who swears back? I'm sorry. He's not, and I wish he was. You probably missed at the start of the show.
He's a lovely lad.
He
I
is.
like him.
He is. I think the world of the guy.
Adam, if you're listening, I love you, mate, and thanks
Miss
for
you,
the.
Adam.
Yeah. Well, we all miss Adam. Like I say, Brian did get his USB, by the way. But yeah, unfortunately, people complain, people get upset, and if people get upset, then what can we do? But that's just the way it is. And me and Adam are going to sort things out with other things anyway, other projects. So not to worry there. But Adam's fine. Adam's well. And if he wants to get in touch with the show, he can. And I will edit him swearing myself. as long as he emails, I'll I'll bleep any swear words. So Adam, if you are listening, and Charmaine, if you are listening, you'll be listening together. Oh, it'll be bleep, 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 bleep. But we miss you anyway, and obviously other people are missing you as well. And what I'll do is I'll try and forward you some of these messages, mate. We did talk about that. Anyway, I'm going sidetracked. Right, John. We've got John with us. John has got a lot to tell us about his experiences as a as a child, a young man growing up, and how the system treated him and the effects it's had on the rest of his life. These things which are going to come into points that we always raise. We talk about things all the time about class war, about the strong against the weak, and these will permeate throughout John's tale that he's got, his story that he's got to tell us. So, John, if you would like to take over whenever you're ready, tell us when you started off. I mean, we were talking about it before the show. Just do it like David Copperfield, basically. Tell us from the start.
Okay then, well, I'll get started. So, very briefly, 1 month premature and brain damaged. With it came a gift and a handicap. Now, in my young days, the gift was the main thing. It stood out. I was a bright child. I'm not blowing my trumpet, but it was very positive in my young days. But when I got to the age of 12, unfortunately, the brain damage kicked in, and I started to have temporal lobe epilepsy. Now, that is when trouble really started. Being a bright child, you have strong emotions. You want to go at your natural rate, gifted, bright, you don't like to be held back. But also, having temporal lobe epilepsy, that's where the brain damage was on the temporal lobe, I had a short temper. Then with that, when you put on anti-epileptic drugs, they give me mood swings. And of course, prior to all this, I was like top of the class. I was a very bright child, not blowing my trumpet, that's the fact. But as soon as I started having epilepsy, I was degraded to subnormal, and I couldn't be let to do things, and I was treated as though I was useless. So that came with a heavy blow, and all the trauma, together with the attitudes of the people in the authority, it just all got on top of me.
Can I just say, John, without you blowing your own trumpet, pardon the euphemism, may I blow your own trumpet? You're actually a bit of a protege, weren't you, when it came to maths as a child?
Well, yes.
A-levels, etc.
Well, yes. I could actually understand some maths worthy of A-level standard in junior school. That was without any private tuition or mentoring. I just thought some things up myself, but again, being on my own, I didn't get proper recognition for it. The people around me and teachers just thought of me as a very bright child that can do a lot more than them type of thing.
Okay, well, as I work in the support side of work, where I work in a secondary school, I have the benefit of seeing them as personalities and as young people, rather than having to work towards a target, an academic target. So I'm more of a mentor really within a classroom. Working on behaviour and things like that, and we do have a fantastic department that I work in, learning support. We have a great Senko, and when a child is statemented,
That's what Senko is.
it's Special Educational Needs Coordinator. When a child is statemented, that's a legal document where they are entitled to a certain amount of hours, where they do have special attention and care for their needs. That definitely wasn't around when I was in school. I left school in 1998, and I could have benefited personally with some type of support, more of like a self-confidence type of support, because I just did not believe that I was capable of gaining any GCSE results, and I was missed out. And I think in that aspect, I think there are a lot of people that do fantastic jobs, but get missed, and as well as and at half getting paid half as much as what they should be doing as well. We are on the lower scale of the pay, and we are expected to do a lot of different. So I do think that we are, a great support team, and we are necessary.
Well, there are people, obviously this is what I've learned from speaking to people that work within schools in a support capacity. There are teaching assistants and other workers as well. For example, not to say it's the same thing, but you have people like dinner ladies, things like dinner people. It's not dinner ladies anymore, is it? But all these people that are there who are required to assist children who have got some terrible stories, some things behind them, terrible experiences, and some of these people who don't necessarily have the training or the academic background are able to give support and give care, and that is one thing where we have come on leaps and bounds, especially when talking about how John had it in the mid-60s.
Sorry, new roles have been introduced.
Yep.
We have parent support advisors within schools. A lot of money's been put into support staff for secondary schools. Like I said before, that they weren't around when I was in high school.
And would I be right in thinking then, from what you've seen, or maybe some of your colleagues have seen, that a lot of the kids who might be labelled straight away as a bit naughty or acting up, whatever, are actually very, very bright kids who haven't got a way to vent.
Yeah,
they haven't got a way to express themselves. Whereas, again, and I don't mean to always bring this back to class, but if these were kids born of parents, there's nothing wrong, by the way, there's nothing wrong with somebody just because they've got money. I mean, fair play to you, I don't have a problem with that. But there are certain people who are able to provide for their children extracurricular activities, extra support, which a working class person, a working class family just cannot simply provide. So some of these children who've got similar issues where they can, they want to be able to express themselves, want to be able to communicate, they want to be able to get things out, they want to be able to shout out loud, like you were talking to me before about, John. But they can't because they haven't got the facility to do that. And of course, what you do and what a lot of your colleagues do is try and bridge that gap a little bit. And
I work in a therapeutic inclusion room as well, and that is. It's a special place within school. It's not a classroom. It's designed with lots of nice things in there and lots of mood lighting, and we've got sand pits and things like that. basically it's just to allow the pupil to have that nurture for the hour and that attention that they might not necessarily get at home. We cook together and things like that. And it's their time, and it's called child-led, so they are in charge of that hour, and that's within school.
Well,
within school day.
Obviously it's unfortunate. I mean, it sounds like, obviously without putting a blanket over it, but it sounds like it's unfortunate for you, John, that you weren't around. No. You know, later on, you weren't born a little bit later on in certain respects.
Yes.
But what we'll do is we're going to play a little bit of music now. And we're going to get to where the problems really started for you, which was comprehensive school, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's where it
The
became
age
very
of 12,
difficult. The age of 12.
1973.
Yep. So, okay, let's have a little bit of music. We've got some more modern stuff for you funky kids out there. We've got Coldplay, and one that I've put in there, I've sneaked in Echo and the Bunnymen. The Killing Moon, which always reminds me of a film called Donnie Darko. We always tend to put one of these in, especially when we've got Carly or Steph in the room. Okay, so here we go. This is Coldplay with Paradise, followed by Echo and the Bunnymen, and then after that we're going to get back to John, and we're going to be talking about some more of his experiences as a youngster.
ManchesterRadioOnline.com. Add us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/ManchesterRadioOnline.
Okay, back on the Watershed. If you want to join in tonight's discussion, 01616600545, or email studio@manchesterradioonline.com. We've had another email. It's a sad fact that it's not what you know, but who you know when it comes to young people who get the good jobs. You could have one young person with a better degree, but it makes no odds. The job will not be theirs. Sometimes that's going to happen. Of course it is. We're also in a situation where, unfortunately, what we do as well is, after years and years of discrimination where we put people to the bottom of the pile, we very clumsily try to rebalance that by then saying, well, we'll give a job to someone, we'll give preference to someone who's got a disability, or somebody who's black or Asian, or just come from another country. So sometimes what we're doing is we're causing division between ourselves by clumsily trying to correct the past and then saying, right, well, what we'll do is we'll be extra nice to certain people, which of course alienates other people from those people, causing more division. What I did want to say is, Brian mentioned a good point then while we were listening to that music, that he has mentioned it before, but it's a very, very good point, is that when Brian left school, you weren't actually, you were given the impression, or you were told, weren't you, that you were not an academic student?
Had a low self-image.
Yep.
That's what was put onto you. So you actually believe you're not capable. And I joined up at 15 in the Royal Air Force as an aircraft engine mechanic. And while we were doing physics and working out a mathematical formula, I did it differently to what the teaching officer expected. So when I'd given the answer, I hadn't put out the working as it should be. And I said, no, I've worked it out differently. And when I explained it to him and showed him the working, he said, you've got a mathematical brain and you're above average intelligence. Now, that's the first time somebody had said that to me. It lifted my self-image. So when we have a low self-image, we don't achieve what we can because we don't believe we can.
No, definitely. And also, one other thing that happened during that break then, we was just talking to Steph. One of the things which teaching assistants often do is actually scribe for children. So there's certain kids who are labelled as dyslexic, or they can't do this, they can't do that. And what's happened is now they've got people who've got the resources there in the classroom for people to assist with that, who are able to write what the children say to them, write it down on paper. And there's been some remarkable results from that, haven't there? There's been kids who, it turns out, have got the most amazing imaginations, creativity, children who understand concepts which are way up in advance of what they should be learning curriculum level wise, but have been held back for so long simply because they couldn't write it down. And now they've got that assistance, and it's unfortunate that, of course, so many kids have been left by the wayside without that support over the years. And we're always told now that when they're talking about cuts in education, that one target for these cuts may end up being these people who are actually doing more for the children proportionately than what a lot of the teachers are doing for the children who haven't got these issues or haven't got these so-called hindrances.
Also, what has come to light is generally when there is a pupil with behavioural difficulties, once you have a look into it a bit more, a bit closely, it could actually be that it's down to their self-esteem and that there is a difficulty for them, dyslexia, things like that. We do use Alpha Smarts as well, which are a piece of technology kind of similar to a laptop where they're able to type, and that can help in certain situations also, rather than having a scribe, where if they can type things down.
So does that give them a little bit more independence?
It does, and it also has a predictive text on it. So depending on how severe the dyslexia is, if it starts with, if they can at least get the first letter, then it can spell out the rest of the word for them.
Be careful you don't put yourself out of a job, though.
Yeah.
Always be very wary of that. Never give them an excuse. Right, okay, so we're back with John. What we're going to say now is moving on to where the problems really started for him, comprehensive school, age of 12. So I won't interrupt. John, if you'd like to take off from there when you first started experiencing bullying, etc.
Yes, well, as I said, it all started in 1973 at the age of 12. One thing I haven't said is that my father died when I was 4, so it was just my mother. I was the only child, and it was one hell of a task for her to look after me and keep things going, etc. Earn whatever she could, because she was caring for me. She had it very difficult. So, as I already said previously, with all the medication and circumstances, it was getting unbearable. So, my mother and I went to the local authorities' education office to try and get something sorted out for me to go to another school where it would be better for me. Not a special needs school, just a better school where I could settle in and progress, where they'd understand. Now, while my mother was seeing an officer, someone else within the office came out and was very abrupt and nasty to me, belittling, raising voice, telling me off, all this as if I was worthless. And unfortunately, this was the start of many problems. I just couldn't put up with it. I literally went berserk. I started tearing off my clothes, just picking anything up and throwing it around. Get out of my way, going wild like. And it took 2 men to restrain me. It caused such a panic. I was rushed into admission into an adults psychiatric hospital, sedated with Valium and locked in a cell at the age of 12. Mm-hmm. I was in that hospital for almost 5 months, regularly sedated with Valium and locked in a cell. I was trying to get people to listen to me, to express my concerns, what was going on and what I needed to do, rather than being pushed down to the bottom, but they wouldn't listen, and I just kept sort of losing my temper and going a bit wild, and that's what they did, sedated me. Now, there was one nurse, and he was a wicked one. He used to enjoy winding me up because he wanted to inject Valium into my thigh. Obviously, he couldn't just inject it at any time. I had to be wound up. So he would do the winding up, get the permission, and I don't know how many of you out there know this, but when Valium is injected into your thigh, it gives you severe cramp and puts you in agony. And this nurse used to enjoy doing this to me, injecting the Valium very, very slowly so that he could see me in agony and I could see the grin in his face. He got pleasure of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid I can remember what he looks like. I don't know what I'd do if I got my hands on him. I feel that bad about what he tried to do to me.
Well, I mean, obviously, apart from that, which in itself is abhorrent, but to put a 12-year-old child in an adult psychiatric unit.
Yes.
I mean, not myself yet, anyway. But from going into those places and visiting people there previously, it's not a very pleasant place to be.
No.
And especially the things you see and the things you hear. And for a 12-year-old child who's got the intelligence to understand his surroundings and what's going on, I can imagine that wouldn't have helped.
No. Well, this was it.
Yeah.
It was a battle. You're not going to control me. I'm not going to be pushed down there. So both the intelligence was one thing and probably the mentality a bit more of a man than a child, because I'd stick up for myself and I'd challenge people in authority. I was like that from a pretty young age. I wouldn't be treated with disrespect. I would respect other people, but I wanted respect as well. I didn't want them to like push me down. And of course, like I said, with all that chemical reaction in the brain with the anti-epileptic drugs and circumstances, it just made me flip. So when that happened, it was more in the future that I would really start to throw my weight round. Oi, don't you do this. You know, I'd really throw my weight because of that. Before that, I was just argumentative, but I used to throw my weight around a lot more. And after the 5 months in the hospital, I was then placed what I call an institution for subnormal children with special needs. Do you want to say something, Brian?
Well, it just, for me, it disgusts me to hear your story. In 1973, we should know better. There were psychologists like R.D. Laing who were actually dealing with things like this. And for me, I could imagine you being a prisoner wanting to burst out of jail, and you've got people who did not understand, saw you as an enemy and suppressing you.
Exactly.
So it's frightening, I think, and that's still going on today.
Oh yes, to some extent.
So it just makes me question, what the hell have we learned?
Yes.
You know, when we still do this to people who are intelligent.
Yes.
Well, it sounds as though, I mean, obviously we've had another message through from, I've written it down here. Rachel, she was diagnosed as dyslexic as a child, obviously without the benefit of having learning support and things like that we've got now, and was also classed as special needs despite being an excellent student in every other area, apart from when it actually came to writing. So she was classed as special needs, and has never, to this day, has always felt ashamed when it came to that, and has always felt embarrassed about it. And people that she went to school with, she always feels that, she always feels that she's never quite accepted as the same, or has always felt this distance from everyone else, all because of this experience. And she feels it's held her back. She's not been able to progress in life. And of course, it's the great tragedies of all the amounts of people that we've lost, who could have ended up going on to do other things, who could have ended up being somebody, who've simply been labelled as and bracketed as one type of person, because they haven't had the support. And it's just it really is heartbreaking. And when we were talking before about the experiences you're having in the adult psychiatric unit as a 12-year-old, if one thing ever positive came out of Maggie Thatcher with the whole care in the community, is that nowhere near as many people now having to. Obviously, there's been negative points to that, as a lot of people will testify to, but we do seem to have moved on a lot recently from this Victorian style of sanatorium where we used to put people away out of sight.
Yes.
And that's what we used, just basically what we used to do. If someone was ill, we didn't try to treat them, we didn't try to find out what the root causes were or how to help them. We just pushed them to one side, pretended they weren't there, and by the sound of things, some of the people who were in there with those patients should have been institutionalised themselves, from what you're saying.
Should have.
Well, yeah, definitely. But of course, go on, Brian.
Okay, what I have come to learn in my journey in life is that we do go through periods of being mad.
Yep.
And that's okay, because you can't be sane unless you know you're also mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, I agree.
And I think until we've actually learned that life is not perfect, life is not a straight kind of run. We have to have dips. And when we realize that each one of us have those ups and downs, and we learn to respect others, we learn to respect ourselves, then we start to talk about education.
Do you think a big problem with that comes from the media that we have and the TV we watch? Before TV and films became ambivalent, before they became before they surrounded us all the time, TV, films, things like that, simpler times, if you will, people based their knowledge of what was normal and what was acceptable on the next door neighbours or the people we knew. And of course, we always give an exaggerated version to everyone else of how we are. We always give the impression that we're healthy and we're happy, that everything is fine. And now that's been replaced by this idea that everyone we see on television is beautiful. Everyone we see on television has got everything going for them. Everyone has got a stable life. And we see these people and we think, well, why am I not like that? And it limits us. Yes. And I think it's one of the worst things that we have now. I mean, the worst example, of course, is these like my little girl. She watches the TV all the time and she sees these models or whatever, and she's got this impression that that's how she should be. And it's the amount of young ladies, and it happens to men as well in different through different media, but especially young women now, where they've got this idea of if I'm not this size, this height, this hair colour, then I'm not a woman. I'm not this, I'm not that. And it's heartbreaking.
We actually have to get back to stories.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the story of the ugly duckling?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're all ugly ducklings, but we become beautiful swans.
Yes.
And that is the story which we all need to say, that no one has such a low self-image that they're not lovely, they're not beautiful, that they're not lovable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We are persuaded to believe that through bad advertising.
But it's not just advertising, O'Brien. It's just come to me now. There's so many times you're watching television, and we can't criticise people for colour. We can't criticise people for the way they speak, or we can't because of their accent, things like that. We can't do these things, but we can still say that someone is fat. Yeah, but we do. You see it all the time on TV. They'll make a joke. Harry Hill, the TV birth, whatever. I think he's got a guy that comes out dressed up as what's the character called? Heather. Yeah. Heather on EastEnders. Heather, who's if you watch EastEnders, she's the rather large lady who, if we're using terms of reference from our modern perception of what beauty is, isn't exactly a pin-up. But on a Harry Hill, a primetime television show, we have a big guy coming out in a dress called Heather, who eats big sausages and all this, and is a point of to insult and to joke about and laugh at. Of course, never to forget that there's a real person who carries that look and that body around them every day and everywhere they go. I was guilty of it myself last week. We were watching Don't Judge Me by This, people, but watching Celebrity Big Brother, and I said, oh, Natalie Cassidy, oh, she's a bit, and I do it myself. But who am I to say that what one person looks like is better than what another person looks like? But this is what the media does. It's what it does. It takes people, it brackets them. And when you were saying previously there, Brian, sorry about that, listeners, when you were saying previously there, Brian, about ugly swans, ugly ducklings that become beautiful swans, I know a girl who was told, I actually heard that, was in earshot of a family member saying that about them. It might be an ugly duckling. And that person now is an absolute stunner. Again, that's from our perception of how we view people, but I'm talking about one of the most beautiful women you'll ever see in your life. Yeah. So it just goes to show.
Me.
Well, you're not sat too far away, actually, Brian. Right, what we'll do...
She is.
What we'll do, we'll have a bit more music, then we're back with John. We're going to carry on. We're going to hear more about his experiences, because it doesn't end there. And, okay, we've got... we're going a bit bluesy now. So, Roy, if you're listening... you're going to love these next two tracks. Quick email before we get on to that. Simon's emailed in. Sorry, but again, it keeps doing that. Simon's emailed in. Talking of intelligence, I've heard very bright people can lose their gifts in later life if they've had a bout of depression or a very large knock in life. It's almost like they become less bright than the average people for a while. To them, this can be devastating when average people catch them up or even take the bright guy's skills, so to speak. The truth is we're all bright and unique. We accelerate in at different times. Exactly what Brian's saying. Yes, some people are much brighter than others, but our brains are very much the same, which is very, very true. I mean, I've always believed that You know, you can if you take two children, you give one all the advantages of life. You give him, support and love and care, and you give another one. You put him in the reverse situation. 99 times out of 100, you're going to have a clear dichotomy of who's got the best lifestyle, and it's not to do with the brain that they've got. It's to do with the circumstances that surround them.
Before you go, if we can see ourselves, I always like to talk either in engineering terms or a picture. If we see ourselves like tools in a toolbox, we are all used for different situations. Or even in an orchestra, your only job may be right at the end to beat the drum. And you may have no other role to play, but if that drum's missing, the whole piece becomes useless. So we are all unique. We are instruments, and if we work together, we can create beauty. If we work on our own, well, we don't create anything.
But we allow people to divide us, though. We allow people to do it every single day, be it religion, be it anything else you can think of. We allow people to separate man from his brothers, women from the sisters, etc., etc. And it's been going on for 1,000 years. Sorry, Brian?
And we should put a stop to that.
Yep. Well, to be honest, I think we're worse than the people in charge because we fall for it. They are the minority, we are the majority, and yet we carry on. But I'm going to end up going on a tangent. I'll be waffling on all night. Right, here we go. This is an all-time classic. Roy, if you are listening to this, all I'll say to you is Back to the Future, and you'll know exactly what I mean. And, I should have practiced more on the guitar, and I might have been able to sound like this.
Listen to the Dan and Mike Show every Tuesday, 7 till 9 in conjunction with 42nd Street.
Dan and Mike do students.
ManchesterRadioOnline.com every Tuesday, 7 till 9 p.m.
We're back with the Watershed. Bob's emailed in saying really enjoying the show. Thanks for that, Bob. Also saying that he experienced similar difficulties as a child in Bury. And it's now fortunate that his children, who have also, originally were labelled as well, have now been able to get extra support, thankfully, from some of the teaching support in his school. So again, things do seem to be improving, not quite as much as they should be, but we are getting there slowly but surely. Dave K, binocular instability and visual stress, very common. But the education system knew about this a long time ago. They left kids growing up thinking they were stupid when they just had an eye complaint. Crimes against the young, that's what the government do best, keeping as many as they can, as stupid as they can. Yes. Excellent point, David. Good point. One of the things that I always refer to with that is Winston Churchill. Keep them in the betting shops and keep them in the pubs. Keep them out of the voting booths. But now it's too late because it doesn't really matter who you vote for anyway. So I think, sorry to be a cynic, but I think we might have missed our chance. I think we've got one other. Jack has emailed in, enjoying the show. Thank you, Jack. The sound seems to be down. Thought I'd let you know. Right, what I've done is, I'm always guilty of this, is I'm too loud, so I turn mine down, but then I'll turn everyone else's down as well. So I do apologise. That's my big gob to blame there. So hopefully... you should be able to hear John, Brian, Steph. Carly's not talking; she's given up. But you'll be able to hear. You should be able to hear everyone in the studio okay now. If not, please do let me know. Really appreciate your help there. We're back with John. He's where were we up to then? We're basically up to
when I went into special needs school.
Yep. So it's all yours, John.
Right. Well, obviously, once you get labelled, mainstream school is not your cup of tea. You get thrown into these institutions. So that didn't go down too well. It was mostly because I was away from home and homesick. Yep. And as well as that, my education was suffering and I felt like a prisoner. You couldn't go anywhere. And, oh, God, I kept running away. I just wanted my freedom. And you can just imagine I wouldn't let them control me as just like before. So eventually, after all running away and even threatening to kill myself if I didn't get back into mainstream school, I got back into the school and got me O-levels, A-levels, and eventually went on to university. But the next thing I've got to say is sort of the transition from sort of childhood to young adulthood was to inquire about disability benefits. That's when I was about 17. And, okay, they'd see me physically fit, well-spoken, nothing wrong with me. They told me I wasn't entitled to anything. I explained I have uncontrolled epilepsy. I'm not having one now, but it just suddenly could happen. They just treated me as though I didn't matter. You're not entitled to anything. What you on about? Type of thing. I thought, well, maybe I'm not a cripple or retarded or whatever. I don't need to be carried everywhere, so therefore I wasn't entitled to it. That's the impression I got. So I took it to be that. So for the rest of the time when I was going through my A-levels in university, I was actually denied my entitlements to benefit. And my mother, as I say, didn't have a father. She was struggling, caring for me and trying to work. We didn't get any extras. So, of course, it had an impact on my education. So, at university, unfortunately, circumstances, costs and everything were spiralling. And even at the end of it, I had something like £5,000 or £6,000 debt. And that was around 1981, 82. So you can imagine how much that is in today's money. So there was quite a bit of debt there, which was making life hard. Anyway, it had an impact on the degree, and unfortunately, I suppose I could have got a first class if things were ideal. I didn't, but still, it's a degree. It's better than a lot of people, but I was a bit disappointed anyway. So the next thing, things just keep happening. After a year from graduating and finding no work, I was, believe it or not, forced onto the sheltered placement scheme by the social services and social security, including job centre, all that, disablement resettlement officer. And if I didn't take that job on that scheme, I would have had my unemployment benefit stopped. So I was forced into it. I got the impression it was a scheme for disabled people to get them into work, and once they prove themselves they can move on. That's the impression they gave me. But I later found out that it was really a scheme for disabled people who really didn't have a hope in hell to get a job. They were so incapable of working, they couldn't do the basic things, so it was a job for them to do to keep them out of trouble, or give them just something to do to stop them getting bored, basically. So that's what I found out. It was for the incapable disabled, really. And what happened? I was the only one in the entire authority employed on that scheme. So here I am, a connection sort of with genius, prodigy, as was said, and a degree in mathematics, and one thing which hasn't been mentioned yet, an IQ of over 150. I was treated as subnormal because I had epilepsy. It's like cowards on the weakest link, the people in the authority, looking for excuses to make strong people look weak. Like Brian said, politicians, all that, they don't want to educate the lower classes because we're too much of a threat for them, so make us look weak by voting us the weakest when we're stronger.
I've only met John this evening, and in conversation before the programme started, if I hadn't heard his background story, I wouldn't have even suspected all the things that he said. So for that to have happened to somebody who's who looks normal, and is a genius, what are we doing to our people? And yes. How many more are there?
Well, there must be plenty, I don't know, but I've come across...
if there's anyone listening,
yes,
I hope they take some strength from John's story,
yes,
and take up courage to say, I'm okay, mate, I'm all right.
Well, that's it.
Well, of course, what we always try and do is, the main thing about the show is we always want to try and reach out to anyone that feels like they're on their own, anyone who feels disenfranchised. You know, that well, everyone is a target audience, but especially those people that feel they don't have a voice. That's what we're here for. So we want your calls or emails on those topics. What I was going to bring up, though, was that what I've noticed from John's story there is that on one hand, his ability was used against him to say that you're capable of this, so we're punishing you because you're intelligent. And then at the same time, then later on in life, what happened was you were being denied everything was entitled to you because you're intelligent. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
It worked both ways. And of course, you know, that's a situation that I can see now. We can all tell is something that even these years later is something that you're still carrying with you now.
Oh yes. Well, one thing I want to also add during that time I was on that scheme is I was always looking for jobs elsewhere because I didn't want to be on a crap scheme being labelled like that. Very often, put in my application, get shortlisted, sit aptitude test, get selected for interview, very often. And all went well, but I never got the job. So what was behind all that? I thought, well, maybe it's the reference. So what I did, I teamed up with a friend to get a reference for me. So one day I was going for an interview. It wasn't. I just had a day off going somewhere. And this guy, my friend, wrote in requesting the reference. And when he got it, he forwarded it to me so that I could see what they were saying about me. And, oh God, they overemphasized the sheltered placement scheme and so-called inability due to epilepsy and things like that. Epilepsy doesn't make you stupid, it just gets in the way when you have a seizure. Yeah. So they were really slagging me off and putting me down. And I brought this up with my bosses and said, why are you being like this to me? And, well, they wouldn't answer, they were just awkward about it. But one of them actually accused me of subterfuge for trying to find the truth out about what they were doing, being sneaky to them when they were really being sneaky to me. And so, oh God, you know, I just couldn't get anywhere. One year I was invited to go on a program, sorry, it's a bit dry in here, a program called Same Difference. And I was interviewed about the sheltered placement scheme. The name of the producer was Steve Mazzilius. I don't know if any of you know that name. But anyway, I was interviewed all around, and my employer refused to be interviewed. Sorry, it's a bit dry, I'm afraid.
Would you like me to, if you want, we can get you a...
Just a bit of water. And then
sip outside. I'll tell you what, let's, one song, it's a quick one. David Bowie, Letter to Hermione. This is a beautiful track, this. So then we're going to be straight back once John's wet his whistle, so to speak. So here we go. David Bowie, Letter to Hermione.
61660055.
Well, basically, it was obvious I wasn't going to get a job elsewhere with the references they were giving me, so the best thing for me was to move on by other means. And that was by actually going into business myself with my mother, which is what we did. Now, this is when we relocated to the northwest. That was in 1993. But from 1973, when the problem started, until we relocated, I was actually living in the area of Bridgend in South Wales. And Bridgend has got some news for people, without any doubt.
Well, Bridgend, I seem to remember, I'm not sure if it was maybe 10, I think it's less than 10 years ago, actually.
2007.
2007, yes, so 5 years. There was a spate of suicides.
That's right.
In the Bridgend area, specifically in Bridgend.
That's right.
It just seemed to be within that one area.
Yes.
And obviously...
I lived in as well, just down the road from where I lived.
Yeah.
There were 2 suicides.
So one possibility then is that a lot of these people, with it being in the 70s, would have still been in employment 20 years later, 80s and 90s. A lot of these teenagers would have, or very possibly, been under the influence,
yes.
Working within the same circles, living within the same circles of these people. It is a worrying thought, though, that if this area did seem to produce, or did seem to have such a negative effect and such a history of what's the right phrase now? The history of neglect.
Yes.
Then it's a possible cause of what was happening tragically in 2007 in Bridgend with all these people who were taking their lives. Of course, it was brushed over in the media as being some kind of, I think, a Facebook thing, or where
like that.
where someone was reading an email from someone killing, and then they all wanted to start doing it themselves.
Well, maybe that was a cover-up.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, of course, the people in charge there would have a lot of answering to do, wouldn't they?
Exactly.
If other stories were coming out at the time. You were actually talking a few minutes ago about a programme that you went on. That was when you had Drying Up.
Drying Up, yes. Yep. Same Difference. Steve Mazzilius was the producer. Yep. Well, he interviewed me and several other people from other backgrounds on the sheltered placement scheme. Their stories were pretty good, but mine was the worst, unfortunately. And like I said, the employer refused to be interviewed. I've got that on DVD. Obviously didn't get it on DVD then because they weren't around, but no doubt I've got it on store, so I've got reference to it. But it clearly shows that they were like chickens, cowards, whatever. They just wouldn't face up to it.
Did the producers of that show, were they fully aware that you weren't going to be on there promoting the scheme? Did they know that you were going to be going in there with a...
Oh, yes, I did let them know. In fact, it came through, I think it was what was then called the British Epilepsy Association I was a member of. And they asked me, well, with my story, because of the discrimination I was experiencing with my qualifications, would I speak out about it? And in those days, the sheltered placement scheme was quite common for disabled people. Hence, they wanted to show how it varied. So it did help some of the more needier ones, the ones that really needed support, but it was just used as an excuse, like the votes on cowards are the weakest link, to make you look weakest.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, like I was saying, the thing is, I just had to move on, and we came up to the Northwest in 1993. I straight away got my entitlements to benefits, which I'd been denied for 20 years, and we went into business, being my own boss, etc., which helped. Didn't need references for that. And within 3 years, I underwent brain surgery and was cured. So in 1996, that was the end of epilepsy. And since then, well, I sold up the business, got into normal employment for the first time. And since then, well, been enjoying a lot of things. Enjoy driving, getting around the country. Advanced driver now as well. You know, just thought I'd say that because I thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm into singing. I'm a baritone, but I can sing tenor and bass to some extent. Not
well, I can imagine you being a baritone, John.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, amateur dramatics. I've been in a few sort of shows in a small scale in some of the grand theatres around the Northwest, and there have been a few sites in the background on TV, but I haven't been anyone prominent. But one day I might get a primary role, but at the moment I'm just one in the background more than anything.
Without putting words in your mouth, John, would you say it's fair to say that due to where you lived at the time, the location you were based in, that you've been denied those 20 years?
Oh, yes.
That you've lost those 20 years, of course, the time that you can't get back.
Well, that's it. Throughout those 20 years, from the day, more or less the day I started having epilepsy until I moved up to the Northwest, I was treated as subnormal, second class, or don't listen to him. Another thought come to mind. When you're in that situation, you're treated as guilty until proven innocent. They just don't want to listen to you. But the people in the authority must always be seen as innocent until proven guilty, which means they can constantly neglect you because they're not going to be found out. You're not going to be listened to because you're treated as guilty.
Yeah.
So that's what it was like.
Go ahead, Brian.
Looking at suicide, what I'd like to say that 1968, after, for me, I had an out-of-body experience, and I went to the Samaritans and became a Samaritan. So if anybody does feel suicidal or feel disenfranchised from life, it's worthwhile ringing the Samaritans. I've found that my years on there, people who rang in were seeking help. They didn't want to kill themselves. They wanted to seek help. And often anger, suicide is, or depression even, is suppressed anger. And anyone would feel angry if they're trying to get out and express themselves, to find that there's nobody listening.
Exactly.
So if there is anyone who's listening and feels anything like what we've spoken about today, frustrated, the Samaritans is a place to be.
Well, yeah, following on from there, anyone that does want to talk to someone, Samaritan's number in the northwest, well, Manchester, 0161 236 8000. Duncan, who was on the show with Brian back, seems so long ago now, back in, well, 2011. Those heady days of 2011. Yeah. And Duncan unfortunately wasn't able to make it tonight. It was my fault because I didn't get in touch with him in time. But he wished us well anyway. But yeah, Duncan at the time, he's from a group called Survivors Manchester, people who've suffered different types of institutional abuse, which is what I'd say is a broad term for what you've experienced, John. It's institutionalised neglect.
Institutionalisation, yeah, neglect.
So there are people to speak to. So, you know, don't be alone, like we said last time on that show. There are people that want to help, so reach out and accept that help, because these people aren't giving it for any money or any monetary gain. They're giving it because they want to help and they want to give support and help people, and hopefully maybe help people turn the corner as well. What we're going to do now, we've only got 15 minutes left of the show. We're going to rock out for the last couple of tracks. So here we go. This is for Lee, and also Carly likes to rock out a little bit. She's been quite quiet, but you'll like this one, Carly.
This is your Manchester, your music.
Right, so we've only got a few minutes left. John has got some more positive things to talk about, just to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that despite how long things may seem to be going against you, sometimes if you just stick with it, there can be a little bit of sunshine after the rain. It would be a great time to now play a track, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But yeah, unfortunately, I've not lined that one up. Right, John, tell us about Food for Thought.
Oh, well, Food for Thought. I'll mention that is basically in the Greater Manchester area, but it's also in other parts of the country as well. It's for youngsters sitting their GCSEs that are on borderline of pass and fail. They need just that little bit extra help, and therefore it's a bit like sometimes 1-to-1, 1-to-3, whatever, just a little extra help. And with my maths, I'm a tutor. I've helped a lot of people, a lot of students privately as well, so I would come down to Greater Manchester and help out with the Food for Thought, with the maths, and the reward that you get for the feeling of helping them is great. You know, it might sort of inconvenience you having to travel all the way down to this, that, and take the evening out, but so what? It's what you're doing for others that would otherwise be, you know, failures, if that's the way of putting it. You're helping them lift into the pass zone, and some of them even got more than that pass, you know, and a grade higher. I find that I can pick their brains a little bit and try to find out where the blockage is in their understanding, work their way round it like a kink, if that's the way of putting it, and then once they understand it a bit more, that kink flattens out and they can see it straight ahead. So I've got great pleasure in helping them see the mathematics the way I like to see it.
No, that is a great positive, but of course, you know, when we read the papers and we see TV, we seem to assume, like we were talking about before, that every person from a poor background has got a nice house and a nice car, and they're just skimming off the state. We've actually got kids who are going to school to get tutoring so they can eat.
Yes, well, it's in the evenings, that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I remember you saying before, though, that one of the things that incentivises children to attend
that's why it's
is
for
food.
Thought.
Yeah,
They
food
get
for
rewarded
thought.
with a meal for the thought.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, again, that takes us back to this Victorian image, which I keep coming back to, where you had kids going to school because they got bread and water.
Yes.
And, you know, again, we've got iPods and we've got iPads and we've got the internet, and yet we've still got kids who are that desperate for a little bit of food, they're willing to go and learn something, which, you know, let's face it, kids don't want to do that, do they?
No.
Not normally without a good push in the right direction.
Well, as I say, I help the maths out. It doesn't have to be Food for Thought. It's anywhere.
Yeah.
Go along to some centres and even go to some schools. I've been like an ambassador where I work and gone round to try to promote mathematics, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, STEM. So we give talks to the youngsters in schools to try to promote those areas.
Something that interested me before the show started was Brian, and this one of the things I always love about Brian is the insightful questions he always asks. One of the questions he asked you before was, did you ever learn to love your anger? of the anger that's been produced after your experiences, institutionalised, etc.
Well, I don't know about the term love, but I can see it in me. It's like a little thing in me that I sort of look after. It's there. I don't want to use it, or I don't want to be angry with it or whatever. It's there. It's experience, and I've learned a heck of a lot from it. So I don't know about the term loving it, but I appreciate it, if that's the right way.
Yeah.
It's meant a lot to me in that sense, because I've learned a lot and I've survived.
I think when we use the term love, people often don't fully understand that because we use it romantically. But if we look at love from a mother's point of love as nurturing,
Yes.
nurturing means kissing it better.
Well,
You know,
in
when
that
it's
sense, yes.
so love is that,
Yes,
and
well-
putting up with it, forgiving.
Yes, well, I suppose in that love
Yeah.
sense, it's valuing, appreciating
Yes.
it, and using the positive side of it. So these experiences, which shouldn't have happened, they have got a positive side. They've made me stronger and more understanding of what goes on in the world, which is why I want to help others.
And I think that's the beauty of what gives you your personality.
Yes. Thank you.
And one of the things I find from here is people who've suffered are usually people who are more human. Isn't that strange? And what we try to do is prevent people from suffering.
Yes.
So we prevent them from being human. Government, listen.
Yes. They never did and probably never will.
Anyway, they need to suffer as well.
Yes.
Right, 3 times this evening we've had calls come through where there's, people have been talking. What I always try and say to people is try and ring when the music's on, and then what we'll do is we'll try and put you through as soon as the song's finished. Of course, what we don't want to do is interrupt people's flow while they're speaking. So, we've only got 8 minutes left, but if anyone does want to ring back, feel free to do so. What I wanted to talk about now, I was going to do Sicko of the Week, but you know what? We're running out of time, so that'll have to be passed over to next week. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Madam Bathory this week, simply because every Sicko of the Week we've had so far has been a man. And we like to be equal opportunities when it comes to Sickos of the Week. So we're going to miss out on that. But one thing that I wanted to mention, again, how we label people and we bracket people, and this is a personal experience of mine. I may have mentioned it previously on the show, but anyway, I'll mention it again. What I've experienced is my little girl, she in school now, and what's happened is when she began, she was given her estimated final grades for when she left school in English and maths, and I think they were C's or D's throughout, basically. And when I questioned that, because she was a reasonable student at primary school, she did okay. She didn't excel, but neither was she in any intervention groups or anything like that. She was told by her teacher that it was based on the household income and the occupation. Basically of my household, so that was how she was labelled. Now other children who are from a more nicer background, shall we say, not nicer, someone from a more affluent background, a little bit more middle class, for example, if someone's an architect or a nurse or anyone earning decent money, basically anyone earning over say £25,000-30,000 a year, those children are expected to gain A's and B's. Or A stars and A's, and that's how it's worked out. That's their matrix that they use to assess what your grades are. That is it. So you are basically judged before you even go to school and take a test. And this isn't just her school, by the way. This is a government standard for children's abilities. I'm happy to say that Georgia now is getting A stars and A's and is expected to leave with all them. So, I've got the last laugh on that, I suppose. There we go. Now I can blow my own trumpet on that one. I'm quite chuffed with that. Yeah. But yeah, it's not only are children from poorer backgrounds being let down by the system, where they're being told that they're not as good as other children simply because of the income of their parents, but also you've got children who may have underlying issues from more middle class or upper class backgrounds who aren't getting the support they need because it's assumed that they will be top students. So both ends of the spectrum are missing out.
Exactly. It sounds like they're being treated like statistics
Exactly.
based on their incomes, etc., rather than individuals.
Yeah, well, as Patrick McGowan used to say, I'm not a number, I'm a free man.
Yeah.
But are we, though?
Well, this is it.
We are,
should
if we
be.
allow ourselves to
Yeah.
be.
Well,
But most of us don't, because we hold ourselves prisoners. The Chinese have a proverb. We do more damage to ourselves than 100 men attacking us. Can I just throw this thought's just come into my mind.
you can throw anything out as long as it doesn't involve an F or a C, Brian.
Good. Food.
Yep.
Food. Conspiracy of eating the wrong type of food. Do you want to come in with this one? Come on. My health has improved by just not eating starch.
Mm-hmm.
Eating fats, which we're told not to. Eating eggs, which we're told we'll do. But when we actually start to look around, food could prevent us from reaching achievements just as much as lack of education. So when we look at education on a broad sense, we need to look at how do we free ourselves from overeating. So I've now left out potatoes, starchy food. I don't feel hungry. I eat as much as I want, and I've lost 7 pounds without even trying. More than I lost when I was training.
And that's with that bottle of whiskey.
That's with the bottle of whiskey, which you don't have to cut out. I'm waiting for the next.
No, that'll be coming up very soon, Brian. Okay, right. Great show tonight. Thanks everybody that's come in. John, thank you so much for telling us about your experiences.
My pleasure,
it's been
Tom.
brilliant. Thank you so
People
much.
need to know.
Yes,
what's
people
happened.
do
As a
need to know.
survivor, we've
Yep.
got to speak out.
Definitely. Thank you as always, Brian. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Silent Carly.
She hasn't been. She hasn't
Sorry,
been that
it's
silent.
been a very long
Carly's
day
been
today.
dancing.
Yeah.
Don't listen, Alex. She wasn't. And if she was, it was with Brian. It wasn't with me. And thank you, Steph. Thank you for giving us an insight into modern educational methods and how, fortunately, they do seem to be improving from what John unfortunately put up with. Right, okay, this is for Roy. Again, you thought I wasn't going to play a Stones track. You were wrong. This is to play us out. My dad's favourite Rolling Stones track. I think it's his favourite anyway. Here we go. Gimme Shelter, Rolling Stones.